Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill. Glad to have you with us.
And remember, keep being patient. We're tweaking the audio now that we're in two different states. We're trying something a little different than last week, which I know some people had a little bit of trouble hearing, but we're going to keep working on it till we get it right.
And we will keep working till everybody's happy and has everything to their satisfaction.
Exactly. We have some things we can try if this isn't the next best thing, but just be patient and thank you for listening. But
all right. Well, I want to start off with our sport marketing moment. I'm very, very impressed with the whole way that Major League Baseball has handled this Little League World Series and the Pro Day that they're doing today. I've loved the use of the players. I've loved how they got integrated with everything. I love how it all worked out in terms of activation. Just amazing stuff.
Yeah, I think I told you
I think it's got a long way to go. I think the logos, New Era pulled in, designed a hat. Majestic designed the new uniforms. They put the nicknames on the back. The access to the 2,600 tickets is primarily for Little League players, their parents, other coaches, and also a bunch of former Little League players, which I think is cool too.
It's very cool. And like I said, I was at the gym today and I looked up and I saw Josh Harrison, and I saw McCutcheon, and I was a little confused. And then I watched a few seconds and saw what it was, and it was, they were interviewing Major League players, interviewing Little League players. It was just really cool. I was very impressed. I don't know. I'm not a big Little League World Series fan, but I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's just different. I've really enjoyed it. They've done a first-class job of it. I think the fact they're playing a game in this field and put all this money in this field to fix it up, I think there's a lot of ways they've done some really, really cool stuff. And I applaud them for it because, I know they're going to sell some merchandise, but I think what they're really trying to do here is to say, let's put some fun back in the game, which I applaud because they weren't doing that when Bud Selig was commissioner. They weren't about fun. So Manfred, I got to give Manfred some props because I think he is about fun. I think, not that nicknames on the back of a shirt is that big of a deal. Bill Beck did it in the 50s. So it's not that big. It's been done before. But the fact that you're taking this and trying to say that you want the game to be more fun because you want kids to play it. And that's what they're doing here. They're showing, putting the players with the kids and trying to say baseball's cool. And that's the whole message here. Baseball's cool.
It's very true. And again, I was listening to another sports podcast the other day, and they were talking about baseball, and they all admitted that, even though everybody agrees that Mike Trout is the best baseball player in the world, this was an East Coast podcast, and they were like, but to be perfectly honest, if he walked in this room right now, I wouldn't be able to recognize him.
No, he is the best player nobody's ever seen.
Right.
And that's part of the problem. Unless you're, I would love to watch him, but I'm not going to stay up for a game that starts at 10:30 in the Tampa time zone. I'm not going to do it. But he is an amazing player. I love watching him. He's an awesome player. He reminds me of Bo Jackson. He's got that kind of speed. I couldn't imagine him as a football player, and I heard he was a really good football player when he played football. But he's got speed. He's got power. He's always looks like he has fun playing the game. I think there's multiple people that are the face of the game, and he's definitely one of them.
Right, but like I said,
Giancarlo Stanton's the face of the game. I think we got all hipped up on Judge, and Judge has had not a great second half. And I wonder if people are going to start pointing to the home run derby because maybe his swing changed since the home run derby because he hasn't had a good second half at all.
They always point to that.
Remember that's come up a number of times in recent years about the guy that played and did well in the home run derby. It's affected their swing, so we don't want to have that.
No, I think with him though, there is the case that he's a 6'8" rookie with a huge strike zone.
Yeah, and people figuring him out now.
People figured him out. Now it's his job to figure them out, or to at least take those weaknesses.
He's got to figure them out.
Because he hit a bomb the other night that was just, I don't know. They said it was only 483 feet into that third upper deck, but it looked like it was a lot further than that. But no, I think over the last few years, obviously,
Jason, the fact that you and I are talking about baseball on August the 20th. That's a statement that baseball's had a good year.
It really is. And again, with, Thor of the Mets and Bryce Harper, there are people that outside of the Pirates that I know right now. But I still feel like I should know them even more. Like, I mean, you try to get. I mean, obviously, you're probably not going to catch the NFL or the NBA right now, but I think you should be, finding ways to get those people in my life more as a sports fan, so that I do know.
You got to come back and you got to show this stuff. It's cool. I mean, I'm real excited where it is.
Yeah, and like you said, even, I mean, the nicknames on the back, even from just a selling more jersey standpoint. Like if you're a huge, McCutcheon fan, and you've been angling for a new jersey, and all of a sudden the one with Kutch on the back,
yeah,
it's one more thing to buy, which never hurts.
No, and I mean the really bright yellow in the uniform. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. It's awesome.
Yeah, because again, you're playing 108, 162.
Yep.
I mean, that's a lot of games, and the NBA has countless number of uniforms. And I mean, you might as well cash in.
Maybe we're seeing baseball goes because the new era has jumped all over it. With the different hats. So we've had different hats all year.
Yeah.
We've had camo uniforms. We've had patriotic uniforms. And again, as we've talked about earlier in an earlier show, when Under Armour starts designing the uniforms in 2 years, we can expect some dramatic looking changes in the uniforms. And again, that message that, hey, you can play baseball and look cool will go a long way with the kids we have today.
Definitely, because the baseball hat is always in style. It's never gone out of style.
And now there's a variety of styles. There's there's still one with the bent bill and the one with the flat bill and the one you wear down over your ears. I mean, it's crazy. There's all kind of options now.
Yeah, without a doubt. And one person who clearly will have enough money to buy lots of hats and jerseys, but maybe could have had more, is our own hometown Steeler, Le'Veon Bell, who the Steelers offered 5 years, 2 years guaranteed, $30 million guaranteed, $42 million over the first 3 years, which would have made him by far the richest running back in the NFL.
In the history of the NFL.
In the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
But he felt that he deserves to be paid as a number 1 running back and a number 2 wide receiver.
So his number was $15 million a year, right?
Right.
That's what he had in his song. 15. He wanted $15 million, and he's not going to get $15 million
from anybody.
From anybody. I mean, $15 million it's an absurd number.
I mean, if any running back deserves the most, it's him, because he does. I mean, like David Johnson of the Cardinals, like he is a great. He's a 3-down threat. He plays great, but the other thing against Le'Veon Bell. And again, as a Steeler fan, I absolutely adore him, is that he hasn't been in there. He hasn't been there for the playoff games because he's been hurt. He missed last year he missed the first 4 games with the suspension in the last playoff game with an injury. And it's not like that was an anomaly. He hasn't played a full season yet.
So what do you think about the drama? Do you think that the agent is accurate when the agent says we never had a deal? Or do you think the Steelers are accurate when they say we had a deal with the agent and Bell said no?
I think if you're the agent and you're offered, and Le'Veon Bell, after 2 weed suspensions and all the injury misses, is offered to be, the highest paid running back in the history of the NFL, I think you probably would have taken that deal.
Oh, I agree.
Because again, as great a player as he is, the Patriots aren't going to offer him $15 million a year. Like, the good teams know that you can't take up that much of your cap space with a running back.
No. So let's see. I've watched enough episodes of Ballers now that I definitely think the agent is taking the heat on this one. He's trying to take the heat off of Bell by saying we didn't have a deal. But my belief is that the Steelers were definitely under the impression they had a deal, and then that Bell said no because he wants his $15 million.
Right.
That's his number.
And I feel like in this particular contract holdout, and again, I fully admit my complete Steeler bias, and I do pay more attention to Steeler news than any other NFL team news. But it feels like there's a lot more players in the Steelers organization that are telling him to get to camp. And that's always, you've always heard that that's like one of the NFL don't rules. Like, you don't mess with another man's money. His holdout is his holdout. But it seems like the other players in the Steelers camp feel like they had he had a good deal that he turned down to not be with them.
Yeah, let's see how it plays out. But I don't expect him to come in till the 4th game of the exhibition season.
No.
And I think he might take a couple carries in that game just to get used to getting hit. And he'll work that, and he'll play on opening day.
Yeah. As far as him not taking, I feel like he's going to be in great shape. He'll come in, he'll do Le'Veon Bell stuff. He's not a rookie. He knows what he's doing. And keeping him, in bubble wrap, if you will, this for a few weeks during preseason.
Never
With all the
hurt.
preseason injuries, it isn't going to hurt the Steelers at all.
Yeah, that's a line. It's a thing. So let's talk about agents, which reminds me of tampering. Let's talk about the Lakers. The Lakers are denying they did anything wrong, and I don't know if they did anything wrong or not. I think the Lakers were they're so confident that he's going to come there that all they did was they made a couple remarks just to let him know that they want him, like that whole thing about where Magic Johnson said, I know him, so I'm going to say hi to him, and I'm going to just, my hi might be more than hello. It might be a wink, wink hi. Let him know that we want him. And just, I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're going to find any real tampering evidence. I mean, the Lakers, I think if the Lakers won him this year, they could have had him.
Right.
But I think they're just going to sit there and wait and just sign him as a free agent if he decides to go. And who knows? They might be bringing Westbrook with him, or they might both be staying there.
Or maybe they'll be joining LeBron and LeVar. You just never know. But I mean, yeah, as far as the tampering goes, like, he's one of the best 10 players in the NBA. Every team wants him. So
Yeah, no question.
it seems silly if they were like, of course, if he mentioned casually in conversation, yeah, we'd love to sign Paul George in a year. Like,
Yeah, I'd love to have this guy.
yeah. Like, unless you can find evidence of him in a back room being like, all right, here's the contract we're going to offer you. You go wherever you're going to go next year, have fun, and then you're going to be a Laker. If it's just, of course, we'd love to have him. If he's a free agent, he's one of the best players in basketball. To call that tampering is just kind of silly. Like, it's...
Yep.
I'm sure every GM...
Here's an update for our listeners. The first home run hit in this Pirate Cardinal Little League World Series kind of Little League playoff game is Josh Bell hit a 2-run homer.
That makes sense.
And all the little leaguers went crazy. So, I mean, they're having a blast. And getting back to our business moment, they're having a blast. They're just loving life. It's so cool to watch this.
And again, I think it brings in other viewers, too, that maybe not, Like I said, I don't typically pay attention to the World Series, but when I saw McCutcheon and Josso on the screen, I did watch for a few minutes. I was like, what's going on? I've never seen it, which is different.
It's totally new.
In more NBA news, we still have all the Kyrie drama. And it's brought up, some people saying, like, maybe if Kyrie really wants to be his own man, even though he has a trade clause, like, is LeBron the guy you trade now?
Yeah, I mean, and Gilbert is between a rock and two hard places.
He is.
It's just not good. I mean, where he is right now is a tough place to be because he's sold all those deals, those multi-year sponsorships and multi-year leases and everything, and if you run LeBron out of town, which you in effect are doing, it just doesn't bode well.
And he's in a tough place too, where it's like you do have the best player in the world for another season.
Mm-hmm.
You have the asset in Kyrie, and it seems like from everything we've heard from Kyrie and Kyrie's camp, he's going to be gone. Like, right. He's doing everything he can to muddy those waters so that he can't come back, that they have to trade him. And then if you're Dan Gilbert, with LeBron on your team, with the majority of that team that, did win a championship against the Golden State Warriors at one point, would you go, he talks about wanting to re-sign in San Antonio. Would you take some of those San Antonio veterans, pair them with LeBron, and try to win one more championship? Or do you sort of say, well, whatever we have this year is fine, but we're worried about getting a future, the future star? Like,
I like the idea of taking some San Antonio veterans and put them with LeBron and see what happens.
Yeah, because, granted, one of those stars is technically LaMarcus Aldridge, who has been a disappointment in San Antonio, but still a pretty good player. He just didn't fit their system very well. But I know there was some deal on the table. It was like Tony Parker, LaMarcus Aldridge, obviously not Kawhi Leonard, and somebody else. And it was like, if you add those three veterans, they're probably still, now all of a sudden they're back to being the best team in the East over the Celtics. And you get one more shot at Golden State. And
now, do you believe that LeBron and Kyrie had a secret meeting this week and had a meeting and talked things over, or do you believe that did not happen?
Well, because Stephen A. said it did not happen, I like to believe that it did happen. Just to be contrarian to him.
But Stephen A. knows him personally.
He knows him personally. They're good friends. They hang out in the hot tub together, just like they have on SNL.
That's crazy.
I don't know. I mean, it's I don't know. LeBron seems like as great a player as he is, and I'm sure and he's great as he would be to play with, because if you're open, LeBron is going to get you the ball. It does seem like everything is about LeBron and what's best for LeBron and LeBron's. I mean, and I think I could see where Kyrie would get frustrated.
I think that's the way you're going to operate in, yeah.
Yeah. Because again, if he came to Kyrie and was like, we can run this for the next 5 years, we'll be like, me and Wade in Miami, and you can be, I'll slowly transition to your Batman. I'm sure they'd be great together forever. But I think that's never gonna happen. So
yeah. So switching gears, as the start of the NFL season comes, then it's the start of fantasy football, right?
Oh, it is. We've already we have a date of our draft for my recurring league.
All right. And so, we talked about this, if you have the first pick in your draft, who are you taking?
I spent the most money last year on, we do an auction in my league. So.
Okay. Explain that to the people listening.
So you get a budget of $200, and you sort of take turns in nominating a player, and then you try to outbid each other, but you can't go over your $200 budget. So last year I ended up spending actually $122 on Julio Jones and Ezekiel Elliott, and I scored the most points in my league and ended up coming in third. So there's different strategies. Early on, one of the best things to do is if there's high price guys you don't like, you want to nominate them and get them out there so people are spending their money.
Okay.
So that hopefully by the time the guy you really want comes around, because there'll be a couple people in your league like me that don't mind spending big on one or two players, and then they'll go cheap on the others. Then you have other people that are conservative, and they sort of wait till everybody spent their money, and then they grab all the mid-level guys, which is it depends on what you want to do. But back to a traditional draft, I think, it would be a toss-up between David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell for the number 1 overall pick.
Okay, so when you're talking about your fantasy drafts and everything, I know that Madden rates these players and everybody rates players. How are the ratings looking for some players, for people to make for their draft picks?
Well, if you ask, I guess technically if you ask any fan and or any player, it's too low. Like Antonio Brown is rated as a 98 out of basically, there's never been a 100, there's 100 players a man, they're 99s. And he's upset at his 98 rating. If his speed is 92, he feels like he should be a 96. If his agility or his hands, you're never high enough for the player.
No.
And I will say, as a fan, I'm always disappointed at the Steelers rankings, where I feel like certain guys should be rated a lot higher than they are.
Sure.
Now, they say they have some sort of analytical approach. I know the speed is based on, the original 40 times the guys had when they came out. So, and then they adjust it. Because, I know a person like Antonio Brown, I think he ran a 4.62 coming out of college. And which would translate to fairly slow speed, but he's obviously much faster than that when he puts pads on. So Madden is somewhat adjusted for that. And it's the same with NBA 2K. They get very upset at all their ratings, too. They all feel like they should be 99 across the board, and probably even higher than that if possible. I don't think anybody's ever happy with their rating. Or any fan, for that matter.
I can see that.
And especially, I think, then you look at your peers, and you just can't believe that you gave that guy, you said his hands are better than my hands. Or, you thought he was faster than me. So,
because you know what? I know that agents would use this in negotiations.
Well, I'm sure they probably do on some level.
I'm sure they do, because it's a stat that's based upon performance and ratings and comparative things. This is one of the few things where they compare players, compare everybody at every position, and they rank them. And I realize it's a video game, but there is some analysis and some analytics involved that probably has a basis for this.
Oh yeah, I know from watching some behind the scenes stuff, they're really trying their best to rate every player accurately, so that they can. But also, with the game, you're also trying to see, you want their video game representation to be equal to what they do on the field. So, the classic example of overrating is obviously Bo Jackson and Tecmo Bowl, who, people would, when they played Tecmo Bowl back in the Nintendo days, you would always have rules where you could play, but nobody could be Bo Jackson.
Right.
Because with Bo Jackson, you could literally run backwards for 20 yards to the goal line and then just break tackles all the way. You could just run up and down breaking tackles and nobody could tackle Bo Jackson. And you want to keep the game more balanced and never end up with that crazy of a... So it's... it's tough, I think.
Sure.
And then, on the same line with fantasy, I mean, I do think the one negative of fantasy, and you should bring that up before the season. I mean, obviously, Gamblers Anonymous would be a bad thing, but I think people overvalue people based on stats that, because if you based on stats, like all of a sudden Kirk Cousins is a lot better than he is.
Well, I just saw the ESPN top 10 running backs, and Le'Veon Bell's number one.
As he should
In
be.
the top 10 receivers, Antonio Brown's number one. In the top 10 quarterbacks, Roethlisberger isn't even listed. Which doesn't make sense if he's got to get the ball to the number one receiver and the number one running back.
I understand top 5, but top 10, it's tough to think of 10 guys that are technically better than Ben Roethlisberger, who's been to 3 Super Bowls.
Well, Cousins is listed. Cousins was 6 or 7.
I know. That one, it's tough to swallow, that one. To be fair, though, the knock on Ben, and it's now 3 seasons worth of material evidence, is that...
What if I told you Jameis Winston was in the top 10 and Roethlisberger wasn't?
That's pretty crazy. Again, I think Jameis Winston is a good player who may be a great player, but he's not now.
He was 10.
Yeah. Because honestly, based on what he does on home games alone, Roethlisberger is a top 5 quarterback. It's just his road splits have been so terrible, and who knows what that is exactly. But the other,
Sure.
I know we don't want to go too much Steeler talk again, but with Martavius Bryant finally back from his drug suspension, I saw a stat the other day that it's been since they've only played together, like, I think 4 times since they've had Bryant, Brown, Bell, and Roethlisberger. And it's been since early 2015 since all 4 of them have actually been in a game together. So it'd be
That's
really
crazy.
interesting to see what happens when they're all together. Because Ben Roethlisberger also was throwing to Kobe Hamilton. No offense to the Hamilton family. And, some of those guys last year. So that's got to bring his rating down a little bit. When Bell and Brown and Bryan are all out in some form or another. But I am looking forward to fantasy.
I'm looking forward to football. We are, I believe,
September
tomorrow,
10th, right?
March, we're 10 days away from the first college football game.
And 20 from the first NFL. Is it 20 from the NFL? No, I think it's...
I don't know if it's 20.
Well, I think September 10th is the first Sunday of football, but I think there's that Thursday beforehand, so that would be...
Yeah, there's a Thursday beforehand, so I don't know how many it is.
Yeah,
But I'm excited for football. I really am.
extremely.
So now that you're in New Orleans, are you going to follow the Saints a little bit?
It's going to be hard not to. This is a city, it honestly reminds me a little bit of Pittsburgh at home, where, I mean, you look around and everybody has, that black and gold fleur-de-lis. And this is a very, it's a town that really takes a lot of pride in being New Orleans. And they love the Saints. I mean, you go to every grocery store, there's Saint stuff everywhere. Every CVS has little Saint, it's packed full of Saint stuff, like wherever you go. You see a lot of Saints hats, Saints jerseys, Saints t-shirts. I work on a television show. A lot of the crew wears Saints gear. So, I mean, it's a town that loves its team. It's very loyal to its team.
Do I need to send you some of your Steeler gear down?
Oh, I have plenty of Steeler gear to rock. I rock my Steeler gear and Penguin gear at the gym every day, so. I will say, though, this is one of the few cities I've been to. I've seen the least amount of Pittsburgh people here. For whatever that's worth. Like, normally in other cities, I wear my Steeler gear around, and people are like, oh, hey. But I haven't seen that a lot this time.
Interesting.
One thing I have seen is some amazing food. Which obviously isn't a shock, because New Orleans is
Well, you were
always...
going to do our food moment tonight, right?
Yeah. I was actually going to do our food moment now, because I was just thinking about food.
All right.
I was trying to think about how you did it with that small, large... I'll just go breakfast, lunch, dinner. How's that?
Okay. That's
So-
what I would do. That's good. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. So what's your breakfast spot?
So for breakfast, I did do Willie Jean's, which is quite nice, and I've been to Mother's. But the place I'll throw out is called Cake. It's not quite downtown, it's not quite uptown, it's kind of in the middle. It's still pretty easy to get to. Cake is a bakery and a breakfast spot. The biscuits are incredibly fluffy. They have nice creamy gravy, lots of egg dishes. The one thing I'm getting used to in New Orleans is the fact that breakfast also means seafood. So it's crawfish omelets, etouffee, all sorts of things. But they also have traditional, just, a nice ham and cheese omelet if that's your thing.
Yeah.
The one thing cake does that I did resist the first time, but not the second time, is you can add a cupcake, a homemade cupcake from cake for $1 to any meal you have. So with your breakfast, you can add a cupcake for $1, which is pretty nice.
That'll be on my list when we get down in October.
And again, excellent breakfast spot. For my lunch spot, I have to go to over by Tulane campus. There's Moe's Barbecue, and it's MOE''S barbecue. And they make some of the best pork you're going to find. It's outstanding. It's got the signs of a lot of good barbecue places. You can smell it from outside when you're in the parking lot.
Like that. How's the sauce?
Sauce is very good, and they have they don't keep the sauce on the table. It's still in little squirt bottles, but they keep it next to the drinks in this large container that keep the sauce warm. So you have warm sauce all the time, which is kind of nice.
Like
Yeah. They have rotating sides. So you have your classic mac and cheese, cornbread pretty much every day. And then they usually have 6 or 7 other sides they do additionally depending on the day. So everything's homemade, fresh. If you get a sandwich, they toast the bun, put on 2 pickles, and it's the kind of place where when you bite into the pork sandwich, you're going to have pork that's going to fall out the side because they pack your sandwiches with food.
Love that.
They also make
All right,
excellent,
what's your dinner spot?
excellent smoked wings there as well if you're going for chicken.
Okay. Are they smoked and then fried, or just smoked?
They're just smoked,
Okay.
and they're outstanding. Dinner spot I think is a spot you mentioned before, but I had something I don't think you've ever had, and that would be GW Finn's, which is a bit pricey, but it's well worth the price. For starters, they have little drop biscuits, which are just small, delicious little biscuits that they walk around with a tray. You can eat all the ones you want. The thing I had that I had never seen before is called GW Finn's Wings, and it's actually the fin on fish, and there's a little ball of meat at the bottom of the fin, like when it's, I guess, pulled from the fish. And they take the whole thing and deep fry it, and then they dip it in this sort of like sticky, spicy, it's kind of like Korean barbecue.
Okay.
And when they set them all up, it looks very crazy because you've got these giant fish fins sticking out of your plate, and you can only eat it's a little bit of meat on there, but what's there is just outstanding. It's amazing.
Okay.
And again, all the
That's a pretty
seafood
good food
dishes are
moment.
just, you don't know what you're going to get there because they don't get their catch until 4 o'clock, an hour before they open. And then
You know
they
what,
make
New
the menu.
Orleans, we should have a food moment for New Orleans. It should be like a food hour.
It could be
I
easily.
agree. It's the best place in the country to have any meal, so it's outstanding, everything. But I'm going to add a food moment here, Jason. I'm going to St. Louis, and I'm going to go to one of your favorite spots, Sportsman's Park.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to go there tomorrow night for dinner. I'm excited about it.
Of course. St. Louis was a very good food city.
Follow me on Twitter, and there'll be pictures of my meal on Twitter.
Yes. But you will not be recommending any St. Louis pizza because you're not a fan
No,
of
I will not even be consuming any St. Louis pizza.
Because for those that don't know, St. Louis has
If
a
you
unique...
invent your own kind of cheese, it's not a good pizza.
Yeah, it's Provel. It's a weird cheese. It
It's very
always
weird
looks
cheese.
melted.
Not good.
No. I didn't find it that objectionable, but most people do. So
Anything
again,
else we got for today?
I think that's about it for today. Make sure you keep tuning in. Let us know if this audio works a little better. I'll be listening to it as soon as we finish up to make sure it's as good as we can get it. Please support us on Patreon. Again, thank you so much to all the people that continue to support us on Patreon. If you go to iTunes...
Don't just listen,
subscribe. And if you go to iTunes, please subscribe. And while you're there, even if you don't want to write a review, at least click the stars. Just throw us 5 stars just for fun because you're nice and you like us. It helps us. It'll help us grow the show. It'll help us make improvements to the show. And again, make sure you tweet either one of us. And if you have questions, you have stuff you want us to cover on the show, we'll gladly do it. So until next week, I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill and Jason. Let's do a little college football show next week.
Ooh, all right.
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great one.